If you're looking to get Claude Code to do full end-to-end video editing, that's exactly what this video will show you how to do. This video right here was completely edited end-to-end, top to bottom by Claude Code. I didn't touch a single bit of editing on this video. I didn't do anything else besides record a very raw and rough version of a webcam talking head video and feed that to Claude. Claude did the rest. So now what I want to do is I want to show the video real quick. It's not a long one. It's about a minute long. And essentially I want to point out all the different things that Claude was able to do in the editing process of this video. And then we'll dive right into the workflow that is responsible for all of this and show you exactly how that works so that you can either A, do something similar, or B, when I release the workflow, you can use it yourself. So here is the video. If you're hitting max plan limits in Claude Code, okay, now what you'll notice here is there is music in the background. It is volume dialed down so that it's not overpowering my voice. You'll see that there is a top and bottom vertical split. This was originally recorded in 16:9, but Claude cropped it down to the square and then put it in the composite step on the bottom of the 9:16 ratio for short form videos. Also, there is a header up at the top. This header does fade away after 20 seconds. And then there's the B-roll where Claude actually created all of the B-roll and then applied it to the top 50. And it's all according to a brand design kit that I have for my brand. So everything is on brand. And then lastly, you'll notice that there are captions here, which the karaoke style is running through, and it limits it to 3 or 4 words so that it is snappy, it's fast, and punchy. There's a good chance it's not actually your usage. It's your tools dumping raw output directly into
Shifting
your context.
through the B-roll
this
on
piles
beat.
up really fast. By the time you hit your limit, most of what you paid for was garbage data, not actual work. Context mode is a tool that runs every tool call within a
Headline
sandbox.
faded away.
The raw output stays outside of your context. Your agent will only see the answer of that tool. So 300
we're gonna
to
go to the
15
end.
You keep the same plan, but you're able to get way more done. And it's really simple. It's just one plugin to install. Hooks
Outro
will
banner
route
appears.
everything automatically. If you want this, comment builder, and I'll
All
send
the
you the
action
system
appears.
plus the workflows and frameworks that I use with Claude Code every day. If you're hit,
All of this is customizable. All of this configurable. You can change and tweak and make it design the kind of video that you want. These were the things that I wanted. And I put them into a configuration file within the actual command that, or the skill that I created that Claude can reuse over and over. And if I ever want to change my style or change the inputs that I'm giving to Claude, and thus how it's going to have to edit needs to be different, then I can just go quickly swap out some configuration numbers that I have saved to the side to fit different editing styles. Now, a little bit of work does go in on that concept. So if you have multiple different styles of video that you want to do, maybe you want Claude to edit short form, long form, and a few other different platform variation styles, you'll have to like set the configs up for each one of those, but that's a one-time thing, and then all you have to do is feed it assets and it can do this for you. I'm going to show you exactly what tools go into this workflow, how to set it all up, and how this works. All right, so the first tool that I want to point out that's a part of this workflow stack is called Video Use. I will share the repo for this tool below. What this excels at is setting the word level timestamps. And at the word level, Claude is able to then detect where dead space is, where any type of fumbles in what you're saying, when those occur, filler words, and all of that good stuff. And then it can detect from those things the time frames or the stamps and the ranges and cut those out for you. This is how we trim the video as the first step. Before anything else, we trim it down to what actually needs to go in from your talking head inputs. This can also work for screen shares and anything else, but it goes by your words. So whenever you're recording your material, make sure you keep that in mind. If you're recording something and you're showing, your screen and you're not actually saying much, you're watching it, make sure that you make note of that whenever you're sending that into Claude so that it doesn't cut that part out if it's important to the final product. So this will transcribe the audio. Every word spoken gets a start and end time. So at the word level, the word gets a start time and the word gets an end time. That's important to keep in mind. And then step number 2,
we're going to detect what filler words are there, dead air, fumbled lines, etc., and those are flagged. And then step number 3, the workflow will trim those windows out and cut it down by the millisecond. Now, the original version of video use uses 11 Labs Scribe. This is a really accurate model for getting the word level timestamp from the beginning to end of the word. But I personally did not want to pay for the API usage, so I forked video use into my own tool, and I wired up WhisperX Large V3 running on my CPU instead of my GPU. I don't have the greatest GPU around, but my CPU is an i7, so it's pretty good. And then I also applied Pyannote, which is for speaker detection. Both of these are open source. Both of them run rather well. It doesn't take too long for the large V3 to get through the transcribing process. And since I'm doing this more passively on the side and letting the workflow do the work, I don't mind the wait. And now that leads me to another point. In the video that I demonstrated, you noticed there was B-roll, and in fact, you're looking at the same thing that was applied to my video, just in more of a presentation style. So the B-roll lands on the beats in this workflow. What I mean by that is once that transcript is trimmed down to the final version where all the dead air, fumbled words, etc. are out of the way, then we're going to take a look at that final transcript and we're going to determine what the beats are. We're going to map out what B-roll will fit certain segments of that transcript, and then we're going to plan those beats. I use a tool that I built myself. This is a very basic Vite and React application, and I built skills around the use of this application to generate this kind of, essentially it's just a React page, but it generates this, and the workflow itself uses Playwright. And then it'll open up a headless browser in Playwright, and it will record the animations. So everything that you've seen, how this pops up, and all of the movement and the motion, that's involved, it will make the B-roll as motion videos. Then it will open the Playwright browser. It will record the motion in action and render that as a video clip. Down the line of this workflow, it takes that video clip and it compiles it into the final product. That would be the composite step, where every clip gets dropped in right in time according to the planned beats, so your B-roll always lines up with what you're saying. Now let's look at what happens when you have your recording ready and you want Claude to edit it and create the final version of the video. So with this workflow on my end, I would record my video, and let's say I have a 2-minute long where I just basically read a script for a short form video, and mess up a few times, whatever, boom, it's there. I send that along with the / command to invoke the workflow. That's all I send. Just the / command, the video source file. And what the command will do is it will scaffold out a folder for that specific video. It will use the conventions so that I can find this inside of my workspace and it's organized nicely. It will generate a context document. This context document is for the whole project. In addition to that is a project document. This is where configurations go in place, as opposed to just what the video is about. So then it will lay out a subfolder for the edit sequence, which each stage, which you'll see on the right-hand side of this slide here, each stage will run its course, and then outputs and the artifacts go into the relevant subfolders within the edit directory here. So the first thing it does is it does the intake process, and for me, I use OBS to record everything, and then it goes into an MKV. That's the actual file type that's created. It will remux that into a MP4. Then the MP4 is what's ran through the rest of the cycle. After it remuxes down to an MP4, we get a transcribe and trim stage. This is where the word level timestamps that I mentioned earlier using video use will produce an EDL. EDL stands for Edit Decision List. It's the list of edits that need to happen, where Claude's basically identifying the ranges within that word level timestamp of dead air, filler words, fumbled words, flagging all of those and making a comprehensive list of where all the cuts, all the trims, and everything gets removed from the main transcript into the one that's going to be used for production. Then the next stage is to consolidate everything down. So we're going to put everything down into a single timeline. And beyond that, we get a transcript that we're able to review. This is a gated step. So this is where a human in the loop comes in. And once it's trimmed it down, we're going to review everything to make sure that the correct lines are put in place. For example, if I say a thing 2 or 3 times in a row, I expect that final say of that line to be the one that goes into the output, because the first 2 were the mistakes. And I want to make sure that Claude's not cutting out, the one that's final and leaving the ones where I messed up. Another thing is when transcribing, it does a lot of mistakes in terms of like Claude. So the word Claude always comes out as cloud. And I review all things like that to make sure brand names and specific names that the transcript might have got wrong are corrected, because that transcript is actually going to become the burned in captions that go onto the final video. Want to make sure that it looks good, it's presentable, and everything is accurate. After that, we're going to run the B-roll sequence or stage, and what it'll do is it will generate 1080 by 960 motion clips, and it makes them to fit within the half box for me. I've configured it this way so that everything made for B-roll fits into that top 50% of the short form video. And then once it has all the B-roll, it's got the transcript clean that's been approved by me or, the human in the loop. It's all trimmed up, ready to go. We will run into a composite where Hyperframes comes into the picture, and Hyperframes will apply the newly rendered consolidated MP4. It will apply the B-roll. It will organize everything onto the canvas, the 9x16 canvas appropriately. And then after that, we will burn in using a custom script that I've written that I'll also, if I share this workflow, I'll make it a part of that. But that script itself is a caption burning script, and it will burn in the header cards. It will burn in the outro. It will also burn in the captions. And that's actually, the captions are the very final thing after we get the banner and the outro, because I want to approve the banner and I want to approve the outro. And sometimes I have a different call to action in what goes into the outro, or I might want to hide the banner earlier in the video or make it stay longer in the video. Whatever I want to do there, that's a gate so that I can approve the banners and the outros. And then the caption burn goes in, which I've already approved the transcript by this time. So that caption goes in and I know it's clean. Now, those are a lot of stages. It's a nuanced process to have AI actually edit video like this. So there's a lot of stages for a reason, because each one needs the right kind of output to feed into the next. And during these stages, we're deploying several different technologies throughout the stage. So in the intake, we're using the FFmpeg to do the remux from MKV into MP4. For the transcribe and trim, I'm using video use, which isn't listed here, but video use is what is using these particular packages. It will use WhisperX and the large V3 version, and then it will use FFmpeg as well to make the cuts within the video use tool. So video use itself is the tool that's actually the container for these and orchestrates these. Then we have the consolidate, where we just use basic shell commands. We symlink the video, and then the JSON gets shifted into a new source, which is the trimmed source, as opposed to the original source where it has all of my mess ups and everything else. We get a clean transcript. Claude will just use some patterns to match on words to make sure that we're adapting Claude, into Claude and not Cloud. And then the B-roll, we use Hyperframes and Playwright, in addition to an application that I mentioned earlier that I've built where it's actually used to house the asset, and then Hyperframes will launch the Playwright and do the rest of that with Playwright itself. Hyperframes also is the skill that is accessing the tool.
So Hyperframes has been built to apply the proper patterns and conventions that make motion videos work well. So Hyperframes carries the training and the intelligence into the tool that I built, and then Playwright helps the rendering process make it into a clip that Hyperframes can compile into a final version. After that, we have the composite stage. The composite stage just basically uses the FFmpeg to finally combine everything after it's all been set in place by Hyperframes. And then Hyperframes will apply the headline and the outro accordingly to what I've approved in the gate process. And then after that, I've got the Caption Burner tool. As you can see, it says Caption Burner CLI. That's my own tool, so it'll just use the CLI that runs that tool to apply the captions and burn those into the video. So now I want to show you what Hyperframes looks like when you boot up their front end, which is essentially just a video editor that comes with Hyperframes. What I've done is I opened it up to the B-roll portion of the video that was created that I showed you in the beginning of this. And this is essentially what it put together inside of their own editor. You'll see where it's got each one of the B-roll clips laid out, and then it cut each one based on where it needs to go according to the beat sheet. So you can actually come into anything that this workflow that I'm talking about creates, anything that Hyperframes compiles for you into a working video, you can come in to the editor and actually make changes to this. So I can edit this if I want to alongside Claude. So if you wanted to be a little bit more involved in the process, you don't have to just depend on what Claude gives you. You can go in and make tweaks and changes. I personally just did it through natural language. I reviewed every output as Claude made changes. The way I have the workflow configured is that once it makes a change, it will open up my Windows Explorer so that I can go straight into the File Explorer and see all of the assets and just review them right there. And then I close it out when I'm done. And I tell it either approved or revise, and it'll revise again if it needs to and open up the folder again for me to review. I did that during the creation of the workflow so that I could dial in exactly how it's doing edits. So I could dial in the workflow itself. But also there's a benefit to being involved in the process if you don't want to just try and one-shot these. But the workflow can one-shot about 90% there. And maybe your involvement is just that other 10% to make sure it's clean, make sure there's no, inconsistencies. But you can do it by going into the front end here in Hyperframes. And it's a really cool thing to look at as well, to see what Claude's actually like doing and putting together. And you can go through each one of the pieces that are a part of the actual workflow from each stage, each one of the outputs that Hyperframes is related to, and go directly into what it's creating and take a look at it. Essentially, once Hyperframes is done making the B-roll and you have your trimmed version of your talking head, FFmpeg takes all of the different pieces that have been generated from all the previous stages and compiles it all down into one final output. After that, we just burn on the captions and we have a working video that can be immediately sent to social media. Beyond that, I personally use MCP servers to schedule all of my content directly from Claude. I've also got several workflows that come before the actual video is recorded that give all of the metadata about what I'm actually going to be recording, including my script. So I use Claude to find ideas and topics, to analyze competitors and the general space that I'm in, to write up the script for me in my own voice. Then I record it. And after that, I can run it through this workflow to get the video created. And then Claude goes through the final steps and publishes it for me. And then beyond that, Claude will get the data and refine everything for the next run to give me better topics, better scripts, and continue to work in the right direction. So this is one step in the bigger picture of using Claude to scale social media. I've got a Skool community. The link is in my description below. That everything that I share, including this workflow here, is going to land there. I will not give this out beyond my Skool community. So if you want to access this and all of the other workflows that go around this, as well as the tools, I'll be, over time loading everything into the Skool. The Skool is new, so it's not there yet, you have to give me time to put it in there, but I will continue to apply every bit of what I do into that place. That's going to be the place that houses all of my most valuable knowledge, all of my most valuable tools and resources and workflows I create or find workflows. Some people create great ones that I'll adopt and use myself. I'll share anything that I find all in the Skool. So make sure if you found value in this video that you like it, that you subscribe to my channel. I will be kicking up the amount of content that I'm dropping over time as I'm working on workflows to help me do so. That's the whole key for me, is to leverage AI to upgrade my quality, upgrade velocity, and keep real value coming out, but leverage my time so that I can get more of that value to you. And that's essentially what I'm teaching you how to do in my Skool. So click the link below, join the Skool, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video and hopefully inside of my Skool.